Welcome to Think Travel Leadership Circle, a podcast series where we talk to industry experts about the latest and greatest travel trends. I'm Hermione Joye, Sector Lead for Travel here at Google Asia Pacific. Many of our behaviours and interests have evolved significantly over the past 2 years due to the pandemic, in particular due to the influence of digital consumption and dependency. Understanding how the travel industry is responding to the new trends orientated to consumers' cultural interests is critical for travel recovery. Today I had the pleasure to speak to Puja Bhargava, Chief Marketing Officer of Pelago, a division within Singapore Airlines that is set up to create unique experiences connecting travellers to culture. Puja, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. To start the listeners off, I'm very familiar with Palago, but would you mind sharing a little bit about your brand, your experience, and the excitement behind why we have you today and want to chat?
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, Hermione. So I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Pelago. Pelago is a travel tech platform. We specialize in experiences and activities. We're fully owned by Singapore Airlines. We were actually conceptualized by Singapore Airlines and BCG Digital Ventures. There was a business case to be made that experiences are probably the most exciting part of a trip.
I'd have to agree.
Yes, and it's also a very fragmented industry. So Pelago was actually born just before COVID. And in a way, it was a blessing that COVID hit because it allowed us to focus a lot on fundamentals and what we want to offer to consumers and the relationships we want to build with the supply that we have. As far as my background goes, I've been in some kind of marketing org for the past 20 plus years. I've worked across the US, Asia Pacific, and previously I was at Airbnb before coming to Pelago.
Wonderful. As I said, experiences are definitely the part of the trip that I look forward to most, and it's really where memories are created. For today, we want to talk about what's happening in this space. It's emerging. There's a lot of demand for it. One thing I've really noticed is that in the pandemic, not only was there a large digital acceleration, but now there's become a digital dependency as well in terms of how consumers go about their research, their booking, and also what they expect from brands. In terms of content and facilitating offline activities, how has this changed in consumer behaviour when it comes to travel leisure activities evolved and really probably stimulated your business?
Absolutely, you're right. There's so much excessive consumption of digital that happened during COVID, and that sort of continues to happen. There were so many new concepts born during COVID. There was the whole DIY culture. There was people getting fit. There was baking bread. And all of this was happening. And what we noticed was the underlying current was people were spreading global ideas.
That's true. The sourdough phenomenon came about, and I certainly got into yoga online. Yes. And it didn't matter where you were or what brand you were interacting or where people were. It was just about convenience and passion.
Exactly. And with these sort of new concepts that were coming on board, it didn't need any boundaries. So for instance, if I'm into fitness, I can now take online classes with a celebrity trainer from Bollywood, for instance. Wow. So essentially, global ideas were spreading very quickly and being consumed. The reason I bring this up is it's important to the travel industry because when we spoke to consumers when that was happening, what we realized was they were plugging into these world of ideas, but their life was so finite. We were all stuck at home, and we thought, how can we as a travel industry help them? And experiences started to evolve to provide experiences linked to what was happening. So a whole series of DIY classes came onto platforms. A whole series of wellness classes came on board. And, there was a lot of digitization. I think a lot of brands went towards online experiences, and some brands decided to keep these in real life, as did we. But it was just the fact that experiences had to plug in into two factors. One is how can we make somebody's life not feel so finite, and how can we plug into these global ideas that are spreading?
Yeah, I personally really relate to that because at some point during the pandemic, it was like, I want to not rely on myself to come up with ideas. I want to turn to the hospitality industry to entertain me outside of video content and things like that. And so I was very excited when things like the museum, ice cream museum, opened up in Singapore, or even just the little things like being able to book it in advance, the zoo tickets because you've got kids and rolling out that way. Have you seen this phenomenon change in terms of the culture or more expansive opportunities? Is there a trend towards pop-up local activities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things as a hangover effect of COVID is that people living in their cities, they've also become weekend tourists. They want to go beyond the eating, the shopping, the drinking, and they want to add flavor back into their life. So we've seen a lot of people plug into the experiences economy. For instance, at the moment, we're actually speaking to Tangling Gin in Singapore and a private dining chef, and we're putting them together to bring a pop-up solution. So people are looking for that variety, and I think there's so much a city can offer and curate as experiences.
And I think that's really nice too, in terms of like from a consumer, that brands like yourself are in the market curating things, because I think as we know that booking travel, researching, it's all more than 20%, takes more than 20% longer. It's complex. And so when you get there, you kind of want brands to take care of it and offer you something in a package. So I could see how that would be really, really appealing. In terms of like connect to culture, I've heard you discuss this a lot when we've been in personal conversations. Would you mind sharing more about this connect to culture phenomenon, and also the cultural interests that are coming about as a result of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So at some point last year, we did a survey across APAC, several markets, and we spoke to consumers, pre-COVID, what was life like, post-COVID, and what they're looking forward to for travel. And through our conversations, we've understood that there's a different way to understand how to shape travel experiences and how to even communicate to people. And we see a shift in era. So back in the day, there was the era of tourism. And this was when people were traveling to check off a bucket list. I want to go to the Taj Mahal or to the Eiffel Tower. Then it became the era of the traveler. And really Airbnb ushered this in with, how can somebody who's a self-motivated traveler become more adventurous, become part of a daily fabric of life when they travel. The new era, we call it the cultural pilgrim era. Mm-hmm. And what this era means is that people are connecting into these global ideas I spoke about. And these global ideas come from digital screens. So what I'm watching on YouTube or what I'm watching on social media influences who I am, gives me new ideas and perspectives, and travel is a way to plug into them. So a culture pilgrim is somebody who is wanting to travel to experience in real life what they've seen on a screen.
We are so digitally dependent, but I do think, in terms of what this cultural pilgrim wants to do, how is that different? Like, are they going back to cities to experience the traditional tourist format, but perhaps in a more digitized manner in terms of the way they book and the way they share? Or is it a combination of the old and new ways? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it is a combination, but there are subtle nuances. So if you go to any experience platform now, you have traditional categories of attractions and food and wellness. And I think what this traveler is looking for is they're looking for, how can I plug into what's happening in culture? So I'll give you a few examples. So you have obviously the culture of movies and music and sports, and that's creating fandoms. There's fanboys and fangirls. So let's take sports, for instance. People want to travel and go on stadium tours because they want to go to the cricket grounds, they want to go to the soccer grounds and experience in real life what it feels like to be a fan. They've been consuming this on their screen, and now this helps them connect into the sports culture. If you look at K-pop, that's another example. And how can a fan get deeper into an experience? On a platform like ours, you can see there's vocal classes in Korea, or dance classes, or even DJing classes, or you can even start to form your own band as an experience. So that's one example of the culture that you see on a screen, how it's sort of translating into a real life experience. And also just to build on your question, we're not seeing icons and attractions go anywhere, but the way they're consumed is also through culture. So that movie, Crazy Rich Asians, really put Singapore on the map, and now somebody wants to experience Singapore through that lens. So they do want to go to Marina Bay Sands, and they do want to hang out in all of these cool places, but it's through the lens of that movie. You have Emily in Paris. People want to go
to... I'm such a fan of that show. I want her wardrobe, and I also want all her experiences. But I think it's brands like yourselves and also the communities that facilitate it, that make it possible. And I hadn't thought about how digital content consumption also influences the way we travel, where we want to travel, and the type of experience we had. Like subconsciously, Paris has been top of my list, and it may be well because I'm a massive fan of Emily in Paris, and also what I see of people consuming, the amazing baguettes and breakfast and things like that, and you probably want to replicate it, and it does take you down to that traditional moment. I think it's very exciting right now. There seems to be appetite for both. Is that what you're seeing? And then in terms of new travel experiences that are curated specifically, are you noticing a trend in terms of pop-up SME businesses, small to medium businesses, or is this really being run by the functional travel agencies that maybe have come, that were offline, that have come online?
So I think we're definitely seeing, as I mentioned, people plugging into the experiences economy, and it's really, travel is being built around life concepts. And when we go out and we seek supply, we think about what these life concepts are. So you have things that are coming into our sphere from the digital world, like couple goals, or hygge, for instance, which is soothing moments. It's about adrenaline rush, the foodie culture. And so when we talk to businesses, small, medium businesses, there's so many more opportunities for them to connect in. It could be somebody who's, offering just a sound meditation, because that connects into the culture of self-care. The sound bath. Yes. Those providers are coming in. So if we talk to our providers in the sense that these are what consumers are plugging into, there's so many more opportunities for more people to enter the experiences economy. As far as digitization goes, I do believe our partners are becoming and have become more digitally sophisticated. It's much more easier for them to plug into an ecosystem such as a travel tech platform, and it's much easier for people to then discover them as well. So I think plugging into the digital world is just, it's a win-win for everybody.
In terms of booking behaviour, are you seeing any trends in terms of how frequent, is there a difference between your local tourist, the person who lives in the city, and the way they book and how they want to experience things versus your international tourist?
I think in cities, obviously the lead time is much shorter. People want to know essentially what to do for the weekend, what to do for school holidays for the kids, for instance. So there are specific moments around weekends and in public holidays. For the international traveler as well, I think we're seeing two different shifts. One is lead times have become shorter, for various different reasons. People want to make sure they're in good health. They want to make sure that as flights are increasing capacity, schedules are changing, much shorter lead time. But I think what we're seeing is when people think about travel now, they appreciate sort of every moment of it. They appreciate just sitting in the plane and looking out that window because they haven't done it for a very long time. But they also are much more looking forward to what am I going to be doing when I get to the destination. And a lot of planning is now done around global moments as well. So music, F1, the Sydney Pride Parade coming up in January 2023, people are planning to plug into these global ideas and these global moments. And that is the reason they want to travel. And then the whole trip comes around an experience or a moment.
Again, what we saw in our insights was that there was so much business travel and the leisure travel, and you tap that back in, but leisure travel or travel itself had been swamped and commoditized, and now this milestone event comes and you really plan forward and you want to make up for because people's reset their values and their priorities. You say, okay, well, I'm a passionate fan of a sports club, I'm a passionate fan of Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift, I want to go to their concert, I'm going to book it a year in advance because that's what it takes, and I'm going to look forward to this sort of global moment. I know the tour's coming, and make it either a weekend out of it, whether it's locally or internationally. In terms of what's here to stay and what you think the trends are looking like for activities? If you got out your crystal ball for the activities space.
Yeah, so for us, I think when we look at, again, the space and we look at this cultural pilgrim who we're catering to, I think that there are some trends that are definitely here to stay. So, one is eco-organic and just social impact and responsibility.
Very important.
And there are tours such as, go to the oyster farms and have oysters, go to the olive trees and literally have an olive tasting, or the vineyards. So I think straight from the source is super, super important. Linked to that, there's a piece of social impact that when people travel, they want to give back in a way. And, I've seen experiences such as, have coffee with an ex-convict and explore Chinatown. Or go to an insect farm or a bug farm and help out the team to sort of grow that ecosystem. So I think people are carving out time that they want to do the things that a cultural pilgrim will do, which is the icons, which is plugging into all of the life concepts, but they want to create space to give back. Those are definitely a couple of trends we're seeing. I think what's definitely not going away is the fandoms. I think those are just going to get bigger and bigger. Yeah. You mentioned some of them, the Justin Biebers, the BTS. I think as movies and music ramp up again onto the global stage, I think that will start to propagate more of the fandoms, as well as sports. Movies, music, sports, art, all of the global culture spheres will start to drive tourism.
So thinking of the audience out there and the small to medium businesses and the people who are thinking about potentially shifting into the activities space, what would your advice be to them in terms of setting up a good experience and how to engage with consumers?
Okay, so I think I would say a few things to them. I think first I would say is, there are so many opportunities to identify what's going on around the globe in terms of ideas and concepts and find which one makes sense for you if you want to join the experiences economy. There's so many niches and people are gravitating towards those. We talked about a few of them, right? If it is wellness and you want to provide some kind of wellness experience just with a simple gong, go for it. If you're a musician and people are into K-pop or into all of these music festivals that are coming up, you want to provide vocal classes, come on in. So it's anchoring yourself to what is the life concept that's happening that I can plug into.
And that you're passionate about, right?
Exactly. And the second...
And how do they just plug in?
Exactly. I was just going to get to that. It has to be discoverable. So I think this is where they need to, be digitally ready. They need to be able to plug into different booking platforms. They need to be able to offer sort of a digital experience to consumers where it's easy for people to find them and for them to add value back. So they have to be digitally ready in terms of accepting bookings and in terms of taking care of the customer.
And there is any advice around that? Like, is it a website booking? Is it via maps? Like, what type of setup would require a good experience? And when you're looking at taking on potential new activities, what are you looking for out of those type of brands or small to medium businesses?
Yeah, so I think there's some very practical things like making sure that they have a small business page up on platforms such as yours. Providing their address, providing
that would be helpful. Yeah,
providing a story about themselves and why they actually got into this. Yeah. So people need to have information to know, why do I want to choose Hermione's experience? And so it's your story, your social digital presence as well.
So they're really looking for that connectivity, that tissue to connect with brands, and I think that makes sense, right? Like the greatest thing that people lost in the pandemic was the connectivity, the humanization between people, because especially in Asia the lockdowns were so severe that when you're going to experience something, you do really now want to understand the story, because you've chosen this over anything else. You've invested in this moment, and also you've been starved of being able to speak to people in a physical format. In terms of what you're seeing, I know there was a lot of talk in the pandemic about online experiences. Do you think that phenomenon is still here to stay, or do you think people will moderate? Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, based on our research that we've done, it's going to moderate. As you were just talking about, I think people crave that human connection, and in real life is super important. So I do personally think there's going to be a shift. Online will start to moderate down, and in real life will pick up again.
But some digital activity, like if you can offer a hybrid or if you can offer at both.
Yeah.
that's a good thing to do?
That's a good thing to do, and actually that also builds scale.
True.
One of the things that we'd actually done during the pandemic was we got a renowned photographer. He's photographed several amazing personalities across the globe. So difficult to find this guy, but we wanted our audiences to be able to have an experience with him, and that was all digital.
Wow.
So I think there will be times when you want to connect into what we call culture makers and shapers, people that you can't access easily, but digitally you can.
Yes.
So I think that there are going to be moments and niches that we can create for that.
Fantastic. So if we do a bit of a rapid fire, Puja, and I'm putting you on the spot here as we wrap for today's session, next activity.
Ooh, next activity. I want to go to this Tangling Gin and Proud Potato Peeler pop-up. It's a private dining experience. I'm tired of restaurants, honestly. The queues, the pricing, and I'm just ready for like a more intimate experience. So that would be my next one.
Okay. Most embarrassing COVID activity moment.
Oh my gosh, Zumba classes in the living room. I plug in my headphones and my kids think I'm really weird, and I was just dancing around.
And your first travel and activities experience once the lockdowns were no more.
I went to Italy.
Fantastic.
We did a family break to Italy, and we kind of traveled across the regions. We started in Amalfi, we hit up Florence and Rome. I just wanted to get as far away from my real life as possible.
I understand that feeling. Well, thank you, Puja, for coming today. It's been really fantastic to chat and to hear more about the activity space. I'm super excited about what's happening from a digital perspective, but also how much opportunity there is for local communities and brands to get, obviously they've been heavily hit during the pandemic, but to, actually get a broader audience and rebuild themselves and hopefully rebuild themselves quite rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the silver lining for me is, as I mentioned, things will be hyper global. That doesn't mean local communities can't plug in, but local communities plug into big global concepts.
That's certainly an ending on a high. So fantastic. Thank you, Puja, and we will speak soon.
Thank you.